If there's one thing I hear over and over again that really stops people in their tracks with starting their online business with all the best intentions and actually all the qualifications and capability, it's imposter syndrome. And it's the number one reason people with real value to offer never actually press go, because they've got the motivation, they've got a great offer, they've probably got their own results, but you just don't launch. And the platform that I use to host all my coaching and courses on is called Kajabi. And they did a survey of other entrepreneurs like me, and I'm in this camp too. But Kajabi's study found that 84% of entrepreneurs and small business owners feel like an imposter at a moderate, frequent, or intense level. And even successful ones aren't exempt. 86% of entrepreneurs who've hit 10K in sales say they've had to deal with it too. So that's from Kajabi, and they're in this business of helping entrepreneurs go live with their offers. So they're the ones that have made it, never mind the people that never start. So people try and fix this in lots of ways. They try and get more qualified. They think, oh, well, I'll just do that course or that qualification or get a bit more experience or a few more results or do it for another 10 years. So that's no good. People wait till they feel ready. I don't know if this feels like you, but waiting till you feel more ready. Well, that sounds very comfortable and nice, but ready never comes. Or maybe collect more proof first. You know, you need 100 clients to get your first client. Well, I don't know how that works. It's a bit of a catch-22. So this is the real trap, but that's not the fix. The things that people are trying to do to fix imposter syndrome are not going very well for them most of the time. So that's what I want to talk about today. My name's Sophie Howard. This is my channel where I help people start their online businesses. So I built my first online business, which was an Amazon brand, about 13 years ago. And I really went against the mainstream advice about what kind of products to sell. So I was a little bit out on a limb, but I also had a little bit of beginner's luck, I think, because my products that I chose sold really well. I sold my brand and my business for over $1 million after a year of trading. And a funny thing happened. I started getting invited to speak at these tech conferences, business conferences, so things like e-commerce or Shopify. And there was often a lineup of male, quite techie speakers, and then they'd line up me to, change the vibe a bit and, different demographic, different gender, from a different part of the planet. Everyone else was usually from the States, and I'm from New Zealand. And so I would talk about building and selling brands on Amazon. So one of the other speakers pulled me aside one day and said, "You should be coaching. Why aren't you teaching people this?" And, I felt awkward enough being asked to tell my story. But my first reaction was, no, I'd only done this once. I got lucky. I don't have a repeatable system. I've got a baby and a toddler at home. I don't have time for this. Nobody would listen to me. My style, my energy is completely different from every other speaker you see on this stage. This doesn't sound like me at all. But then I had a look at who else was coaching around Amazon, and it wasn't all that flash. And I realised a lot of them knew a lot less than I did and were teaching some really junk advice at times. Won't name any names. But, there's no barrier to entry to this. There's no quality control, no regulatory pass, fail. You can teach, you can coach, you can, you can't. So looking at what other people were charging and what they were teaching helped me feel a little bit better about thinking about doing it, but it still didn't fix the problem because I wasn't comparing myself to the people worse than me or behind me. I was comparing myself to people that were way ahead of me, the people with the 8 and the 9-figure businesses and who had whole teams in China and, whole great big infrastructure around what they did, which I didn't have. So this sort of helped me measure up against the right people because I had been measuring up myself against the people who knew a whole load more than me, who were better at shipping and advertising and logistics and running big teams. I knew none of that. I was hopeless at the shipping and admin. I was hopeless at ads. And there were coaches and sellers out there with way bigger accounts, lots more product lines, sourcing from China, filling whole shipping containers. And next to them, I'd felt like I knew nothing. But there was one bit of the business I enjoyed and was apparently good at, which was choosing which products to sell. So that was an angle that made my offer unique. And it turned out to be actually the highest leverage skill in the whole process because most of the other bits are just, on repeat. So I realised I didn't need to match everyone on every skill set or be the most advanced person. All I needed to be was a few steps ahead of someone who was stuck on one decision that I felt confident in making those decisions. So the skills that intimidated me, the shipping and advertising, they didn't need to be my problem. I could patch those in later or outsource them. They just weren't needed for the kind of clients that were looking for help from someone like me. So when I decided to do this, I didn't build a fancy brand. I didn't set up on a fancy tech platform. I didn't set up PayPal payment links or anything. I did one podcast interview and mentioned how I choose Amazon products. And I offered to talk to anyone who wanted to talk to me with a link in the show notes. And 10 people signed up straight away. And that was about 100K week, straight out the gates. And what really motivated me to do that coaching was it gave me more cash flow to buy more products. So I was learning more, my business was more profitable. I was learning from my clients, they were learning from me. There was no pre-recorded polished course, there was no fancy slide deck, there was no onboarding team or software to manage their call recordings. It was all done manually from home when my children were asleep. So the clients weren't beginners with zero experience. Lots of them had a good Amazon account or maybe more product lines. They just didn't really have a good, robust way of choosing what product to do next, or they would just overanalyze it and never pick one, or they just didn't have a kind of a game plan of building a brand. And I'm not a branding person, but I just had a kind of a method of a bit of data and a bit of looking for the gaps and trying to keep away from the big competitors, basically, and making it something hard to copy. So if anybody else could source that same product online from Alibaba, I wouldn't touch it. So the kind of people that wanted to talk to me were kind of my people. They were ones that were going a little bit zig when everyone else was going zag. I wasn't doing cheap plastic stuff from Alibaba. I was trying to do premium brands and help them kind of find these premium suppliers and, package it up nicely and do a quality listing. So I'd been comparing myself with these people that were piling them high and selling them cheap. And actually the people that wanted help were not after those other experts at all. They were looking for a different philosophy and a bit of a different track record. So the right comparison is looking to help someone who's just a step or two behind you. You don't need to be at level 10 helping somebody at level 0. You just need to be a little bit ahead and helping people talk through decision making, giving them some confidence, structuring the research and the conversation about what they need to do to get the result they want. So there's no shortage of information out there. If you wanted to choose an Amazon product, there were a million spy tools and keyword tools and reverse engineer other people's listing tools. And now there's AI that can read every guide, scan every training piece, every book, every tactic out there. It's thrashed to death. But what people lack is someone to help them make a decision and actually act on it. And that's where, if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, this is the thing you have to ask yourself. Can you help somebody make a decision and actually act on it? Give somebody the advice you would give a friend, or how you would get through something yourself if you've got some experience. And you don't need a PhD or to have taught this in a university. In fact, that would almost work against you. Somebody wants to experience what you've experienced, your own lived experience, rather than theory, rather than technical best practice out of textbook, but really like how the world works. And stuff moves so fast. If you can help somebody real time with their real time decision making and behavior, then you can be really valuable and you could help them. So I could talk to people when they were nervous about placing the order and just stalling and finding another thing wrong with that product. But I couldn't actually do it for them. But I could be the human that helps them decide, helps them follow through, helps them feel they've researched it thoroughly, they've done enough, and now it's time to move on to the next step, and having a framework to take them through. So what imposter syndrome looks like for you might be, feeling underqualified. It might feel like you're comparing yourself to people streets ahead of yourself in your industry. But if you can think of one decision or skill that you're already used to doing, you do it maybe yourself, maybe you've solved this problem in your own life. Maybe it's something people come and ask you for advice about often. This is something that people come, you're a good friend or a good listener on this particular topic, or you do something really competently and people always ask, how on earth do you keep your household so tidy? Or how are your children always so organised with homework? Or how do you run that garden? Or how did you start that online business when you had a baby or a toddler in the house? People will be asking you for help with things. And your opportunity is to package up what you both know about and care about. And that's the big thing. If you really care about your client or your customer's result, the format of your slide deck or the length of your webinar or all those details around how you package it up and present it become a little bit less important than the big thing, which is your intention to serve or help other people. And so if you can do those things, decide on a topic that you know you can help other people with, and forget about qualifications or level or depth of experience, but just know that this is something, it's a subject you know about and care about, you're willing to stay current and engaged with it, and your intentions are to help other people have success of some sort. It might be a full life transformation around diet, exercise, relationships, business. It could be a really transformational thing, or it could just be helping someone change or drop a habit, help somebody stop drinking, help somebody be a calmer parent, help somebody sort out their sleep, help somebody with imposter syndrome. This is a thing I can talk about because I know how many people struggle with it and how to get through it. So if you're still with me and struggling with imposter syndrome and you've got something really great you're excited about, on one hand you want to launch, you want to start an online business, but on the other hand there's something in the back of your mind holding you back, feeling like you're not enough or not qualified enough or not ready yet, then what you should do is click on the link that you can see below this video. It's a free Strengths Finder quiz. It's a profiling tool that will help you identify some areas that you might have some skills or strengths in that you might not have thought are marketable but could be. And it'll also ask you some questions about what holds you back, a little bit about sort of personality and some of the traits you have that would help you get your business up and running once you've got a bit more clarity on those different areas of your life, because not all business models are the same, not all types of clients are the same. A consumer community type of group is very different from a business to business offer, for example. So in starting a business, you need to really shake off this imposter syndrome. I'm going to do quite a few videos with some more practical steps on shaking off imposter syndrome, taking a deep breath. One of the really great strategies you can actually do here is just a hard deadline 30-day challenge, and so you can join me on one of those. But the first thing to do now is to go and do the Strengths Finder quiz. It's the Aspiring Entrepreneurs Strengths Finder quiz, and it'll give you so much insight and self-awareness around your strengths, your skills, what you've got to offer, and we can then work on packaging it up and taking it to the world. So click on the link and I'll see you in the next video.